This is the Ring of Honor, a.k.a. Shane T, boy, the baddest champion you ever seen, boy.
This is Mr. Anderson.
This is good old JR Jim Rock, and you are listening.
You're listening to Knockouts and 3 Counts.
Cover! We got a new world champion!
That might be one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen in my life.
Knockouts and 3 Counts is the podcast, baby! It's the real deal, baby!
Knockouts and 3 Counts starts now.
Ooh, what up? No, it's another Tuesday. Yes, we're back in our normal slot. This is Knockouts and 3 Counts, but I mean, I would like to think that judging based upon the feedback we got, even those who called us leeches, I'd say you guys enjoyed the things that we brought to you last week on Knockouts and 3 Counts. Shout out to Gil Gordado for great storytelling and all that good stuff and telling us like Renee Paquette said, which you can find it if you go follow us at those social medias, where, you know, Renee Paquette said it was Moxley and his origin story. So it was a good time with that one. And then we had your Ring of Honor World 6-man champions, 2/3 of them anyway, Khan and Moses on with us Thursday. I mean, I would say last week was a pretty banger week, huh, Corey?
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a busy week for the Knockouts and 3 Counts show. The change of schedule was definitely weird on my end. I felt it on my end, but it was well worth it.
Hey man, like I said, shout out to Khan and Moses. If you guys see them on a card near you, you need to make that happen. And I mean, hell, like Donald was saying in the comments, which if any of you guys are watching, and once we get talking about WWE Draft, the UFC Vegas 38 and all these things, please, we love the comments here at Knockouts and 3 Counts. We ain't scared. Even if you want to talk shit, guess what? I control the keyboard, so I'll talk shit back. So anyway, this is how we get down out here, but we're about to have a good show. And I figured since I saw him, this past weekend, we could talk a little bit about the Slipknot show and Knotfest as I went there with the homie Jbone. I mean, how you doing, brother, man?
Man, I'm still feeling it. Not gonna lie, from Saturday night, dude. Like I was telling you earlier, my neck was hurting on Sunday, dude. I was like, oh, what the heck? Standing on the hill, rocking out with you for hours. I guess it's just how it goes, man.
So it's my fault, huh?
Yeah.
Who else performed at Knotfest?
So you had Killswitch Engage, which was fucking. Oh my God, I loved Killswitch Engage. Yeah, I've been a Killswitch Engage fan for a long, long time. And they even made, for those who don't know, they made CM Punk's original theme song in WWE, which in my opinion was one of the most badass theme songs for quite a while too. So it was good to see them. It was also Fever 333 and Code Orange were there. So
not to derail the show too much, but how Fever 333, they're a very strange band. How are they in concert?
Well, Jbone would have to tell you about that one because I didn't get there.
I'm not even gonna lie, dude. Listen, we tailgated in the parking lot until Killswitch was about to come on, and I finally talked everybody to getting inside, but I didn't get to see him, to be honest. But
I can't argue. They're not my taste of music, I guess you could say. I've tried to give them a listen after their little bit of radio success last year, but not for me. They remind me of like a modern age Rage Against the Machine, but just in an off way.
I could see that. I mean, but okay. So here's the thing, man. And Jay, I gotta ask you, dude. So I mean, we're starting right off with Knotfest. So yes, we're getting to the WWE Draft. Yes, we're getting to UFC Vegas, but I've been a fan of Slipknot since I was a kid. My dad liked them. I liked them. I honestly am more of a fan of a lot of their older stuff than I am their newer stuff. But I don't know what it is, man. I still enjoyed it, but I don't want to say I didn't like it as much as when I was a kid, but it's like now when you're older and understand what all the songs mean and shit, I just found myself like a couple times being like, damn, dude, like,
yeah, it takes on a different form as you get older, man. It's like, damn, like most of the time when you, like I always say, music's almost like a feeling. Like if you can really feel some of the Slipknot songs, and you probably got a lot more going on, that should be taken care of on another level, to be honest. But
well, especially because I mean, again, and nobody's getting into Joe Jesus or nothing over here, but I mean, I've become more involved with my faith, we'll just say, since when I was a kid. And when the song that's playing is "If you're 5'5", then I'm 6'6". Well, it's kind of not.
Man, listen, I'll tell you this.
You know what I mean?
We were out in the parking lot. Like I said, we got there probably about 3:00, right when the parking lot opened, and we were just out there tailgating. You know, I was recording some stuff for the show. We were having some drinks, and people were walking by, and like I like Slipknot, man, but like these people will come by, and I'm telling you, they were dressed as people from Slipknot, so they pop out like in mass. I'm like, oh shit, like what up, dude? You know, the people get into it, man. I'm telling you, it's crazy. And honestly, the younger kids are into it more now too. There's kids out there probably 8, 9 years old just rocking.
Dude, he said it on the stage. He was like asking, how many times have you been to a Slipknot show? And then like you got like 10-year-old kids, dude.
Yes,
like
man. I'm telling you, it's almost like a cult following, dude. It's crazy.
I'm not hating on it. Like that, like don't mistake what I'm saying. I still enjoyed it. I'm just saying it's crazy how as you get older, like the way songs hit you and things changes, right? For any of you guys who are just jumping in here in the chat, we are talking about the Slipknot concert that me and Jbone were at. If you guys are into that sort of thing, let us know in the comments. What kind of concerts are you guys trying to hit? I want to know. But like I said, that was my only thing. But when you got to like Wait and Bleed, dude, I was losing my shit because that was one of my favorites when I was a kid. I always thought Duality was cold. Like, and then when you throw in the fact that Kill Switch Engage was there too, I mean, dude, for those of you guys who are wrestling fans, newsflash, Kill Switch Engage is the one who did his original theme song. So me and Jbone were totally having a acapella fucking sing fest on the hill at DTE, and I got no shame in it. And any of you who are watching that got a shame with it, you can come see me at BCWA, which we'll be talking about in a little bit once Priest gets in here. BCWA returns finally after this whole damn pandemic. They return October 16th in Wyandotte, Michigan at the Copeland Center. And hopefully we'll have some good guests to bring to you next week to help talk a little bit about that. You know, there's a lot going on leading up to next month when we got the big MSG card at UFC. So a lot to talk about. Now, that brings up as good a question as any. I mean, Jbone, you were telling me when we were there that BCWA was where you first found us. Yeah. So I was explaining to Corey, I mean, BCWA has been rocking with us heavy for quite a long time now. So you got any good BCWA memories, or how the hell did you end up seeing us at BCWA is a question, I guess.
Honestly, I clicked up with my cousin Corey. He wrestled there a few times. And then, Uncle Chase, man, I'm a big fan of his, so I've been watching his stuff for a lot of years. Same thing with Sean, Zane Silver, man. So honestly, I went and seen them. I want to say it wasn't the Copeland Center, wherever they were before that in Taylor. And
they did the Yak too, dude.
I can't remember where it was at, but it was years ago, man. And they had the match between Priest and Bill Martell, and it was if Priest lost, he had to retire. And I want to say it was the same night. It was like they had like this Royal Rumble gimmick match thing going on. I was hooked, man. That was one of the first times I was there, and I watched those dudes go at it. And I was like, wow, like at an independent show, I was invested as hell, dude. BCW, and they've always put on good shows every time. Great product.
I can't argue that, dude, because out of all the local indies, dude, like consistently, even if they weren't in the biggest building, like. When they went over to the Copeland Center isn't that big of a building, but dude, they packed that bitch.
Yeah.
Every time. Yeah. Like literally packed that bitch. And then when you got little kids that are running up to the ring trying to hit the wrestlers because they're that into it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they've got quite the atmosphere. So Corey, like I said, we got to get you out to your first BCWA show. Like I said, October 16th is their return. But after that, they'll be back pretty much every month. And most likely you might be seeing knockouts and 3 counts there as you would before. Because for those of you who don't know, I mean, we've had the likes of the Frogun on here. We've had Mike Blackwell's been on here more times than I can count. Priest has been on here more times than I could count. That's where we met all the Death Threat Army boys. That's where we met Dread King Logan. That's where we met all these guys. That's where the vlogs originated from. So with BCWA coming back, there's so much to talk about. But speaking about things that are coming back, the WWE draft is the signal of the big shakeup. So why don't we dive a little bit into the draft a little bit? So before we talk about night one, man, October 21st, 22nd, you've got Crown Jewel. Now, all the trades all the draft picks that took place don't take effect until after Crown Jewel. But I mean, we had quite the round of shakeups and stuff. You know what I mean? What were your thoughts on night one, Jbone?
And I thought it was great. Well, first and foremost, dude, as a wrestling fan, who's going to be at the top there. And for Roman to go number one, I think you couldn't have done it any better than that, because Roman, dude, he's the best thing going in WWE, in my opinion. The dude is gold, and for him to stay on SmackDown, it had to happen, dude. I'm sure Fox demanded that, but I think Big E going, with the whole Raw thing, that shakes up Raw a lot, man. That brings almost a whole new look to Monday Night Raw, because as far as you can remember, Monday Night Raw has been serious, hard hitting. Big E is going to bring that more like a lighter look. You know what I mean? That more fun look. He's going to have to bring the fun atmosphere, especially as a champion. Yeah, man. I think it's going to shake it up over there. Night one turned out real good for them, I think.
Go ahead.
I was going to pose that question since you brought it up, actually, that Roman went number one. Is it any surprise in your guys' eyes that he didn't transfer promotions, I guess you could say, or banners?
No. As far as Roman goes, I think more than anything, the thing that surprised me with them, and here's the other thing that was kind of weird about this draft. So not everybody was eligible on both nights. It was like a pool of people were eligible on night one, and then a pool of people were eligible on night two. Okay. So that was something that was very interesting, because then here's the thing. So you got to throw in there. So night one, you have Charlotte go to SmackDown, and you have Roman go to SmackDown, but the Usos weren't eligible to be drafted, which means the other 2/3 of the bloodline could have went to Raw. Yeah. So that's why you saw on SmackDown Roman Reigns making it clear to Brock Lesnar, making it clear to Paul Heyman that he needed to be at Raw on Monday to make sure that they got drafted to SmackDown so that they stayed with Roman. But here's what's funny about that. I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself here, but it's funny because when you fast forward to Friday, right when the Usos, or on Monday, excuse me, when the Usos got drafted, the broadcaster or interviewer is over there talking about, and he's like, and you were able to secure that Brock Lesnar is still the only free agent. Yeah. Right in front of the Usos. So they're planting those seeds for that seed of deception. So Jbone, let me ask you then, what do you think happens with this whole Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns thing? Do you think Heyman ends up going back with Brock Lesnar at some point, or do you think the Roman Reigns kicks him out to the curb, or what do you see what's happening? Anybody who's watching, let us know what you think with Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar.
I think you got the match at Crown Jewel, and I don't think it's going to end there. I think something's going to happen. Something's going to keep our gears spinning about that story. And I think that's going to go all the way through Survivor Series, man. Maybe even to the Royal Rumble, to be honest. I feel like they could prolong that far. But I think they're going to keep us on our toes with it. I think they're going to keep us guessing, because the whole answer to why Brock is a free agent, I don't think that's going to come out for a while. I think they're going to keep that moving.
So I can agree with that, but they're sure planting the seeds with it. Mm-hmm. You definitely know something's coming, whether it comes next week, the week after, in a month.
Yeah,
that was definitely.
As long as the wheels are keep going on that thing, you might as well keep riding that wagon, man. Because
right, and that's what I'm saying. They made it clear to let you know, like, this isn't the last time you're going to be hearing about this.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting to me. But again, like we were talking about before we went on the air, dude. I mean, you had Charlotte Flair, the Raw Women's Champion, was drafted to SmackDown on night one. So what are your thoughts on, them switching up the champions, because as we'll talk about in a minute, on night 2, Becky Lynch got drafted from SmackDown to Raw, along with Seth Rollins, which for those of you who really pay attention, it's not surprising being that they're married, because that's about the only way they'll draft you to the same show as your significant other. But I'm just saying, it's like, if you pay attention, it's a fact. Like Renee Paquette, who, hey, if you follow us at KO3C Pod, you would see Renee enjoyed our show with Gil Gordado, the coach of one John Moxley. Yeah, man, like Renee said on her show, I checked them out on Sirius XM. Like, it used to be the only way that you could get drafted to the same show as your significant other, because a lot of them are dating each other, is you had to be married. So, like I said, it's not a big surprise, but again, take that completely out of it. Just the fact that they switched up the champions, well, then what are you going to do with the belts? Which makes it very intriguing, being that we're going into a brand supremacy pay-per-view like Survivor Series.
Yeah. I think it'll come to a head around there. I think that, like I said, I think they're trying to keep us on our toes with a lot of things right now, just to keep our attention pretty much. But obviously the belt's got to switch. Something's got to happen. You can't have the SmackDown Women's Champion on Raw. You know what I mean?
Well,
so something will happen. I'm not sure what, but
so I want to talk about that though. So like, that's something that, I've talked about with a few people now since all this has gone down. I've said this the last few years, especially when it comes to the draft. Like, okay, I loved the draft the first time they did it. I also was 10 years old when they first did it. But at least when they did it the first time, it was still like SmackDown versus Raw. You know what I mean? Like, you would have, like, when Survivor Series would come around, there'd always be like the, the 5-on-5 Survivor Series match, or, the Intercontinental Champion versus the US Champion, or, whatever the, oh shit, speaking of the man, and any walks. We are now going to be joined by Mr. Mathew Priest. You mentioned that he was there when you first got to check out BCWA. Well, he is joining us here in a second. Let me get my stuff set up here real quick. But go ahead and finish your point on what we had with all the switching with the titles, because what I was going to say is, for me, I would personally like to what's up, Priest? I would like to see one champion. Like, I'd like it to go back to being like the undisputed champion. I just think that works better. I think the champions should go in between brands. I think you should have one tag team champion, one the women's tag champs. You can have one world champion, and then have, a couple, like the Intercontinental and the US title, be what they used to be, and basically be like, if this guy's got that strap, then he's on the way, or at least around, the title picture. We're talking about the big changes that we've had with the women's title on with the draft, Priest. So first of all, feel free to plug all your stuff and let them know where they can find you, but feel free to give me your thoughts on the champs changing brands.
It's at Mathew Priest, 1T and Matthew, 1T and Priest, _ in between, MATHEW _ Priest with T. However, I think they did this, what was it, last year with the tag titles? They changed it up. I don't have a problem with it. It is what it is. You got to get fresh matchups. Becky just came back, and Charlotte was out most of the year too. So thought it was strange they did a draft, but I get trying to pop a rating. I'm really indifferent towards it. It's a flip flop. Is what it is. Charlotte and Bianca will be good.
I think that's the first person that, from what I've read and heard, that kind of feels indifferent about it. It seems to be generally a intriguing thing from wrestling fans' perspective, from everything I've seen on Twitter and stuff like that. It seems like a lot of people were interested in what was going down in the draft.
Well, so here's the thing.
Desensitized to it, I guess.
Yeah. That's another thing. So here's the thing, especially with what you were just talking about. Bianca came over to Raw as well, which I have no problem with, because it's no secret that Raw's women's division needed help. The same as I'm completely okay with Shayna Baszler going to SmackDown. Thank God she's going to SmackDown because I think it'll give her a fresh start and they could finally maybe keep booking her like they have the last few weeks, because if anybody watched what she did in NXT, she was money. But as far as the champions, I mean, Priest, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So right before you jumped in, I was saying, you know, and I've heard this brought up by a couple different people, but like at first I understood why the two brands had their own champion. You know, like when they first started doing it, 0203. But I honestly thought that the best time for the brand split was when they first did it and you had the undisputed champion that could show up either way. In my personal opinion, like I said, I think them doing it the way they do, it's like now it's gotten to the point where what distinguishes the WWE Championship as being the bigger title than the Universal Championship, and what. So for me, I think it would be a better move for them to have one champion, and then you can and have the champions go between brands. Or even if they don't want to do that, I have no problem with it going back to how it used to be, to where you had everybody on both brands, because I also feel like, you know, you always hear them talk about competition within. Well, if everybody's not split apart by brands anymore, that means that you're going to really have to get your shit in to get your spots. So what do you think about either of those suggestions, and what are your thoughts still on the brand split as we finish this draft?
Well, personally, the wrestling fan in me always wanted just one distinct champion. However, we're never going to get that with WWE again for several reasons. Number one reason is you can sell more toy belts, and you can have kids buying more toy belts. You can sell more action figures with toy belts. You can make far more money on merchandise by having more belts. Also, when you have house shows running, live events running, which right now they're not at that point, but if they ever go back to dual branded live events, you're going to have a champion potentially on each show. I liked the thought of one champion. I liked it when they first had the Universal title with Brock in 2002. Or not the Universal title, but the Undisputed Championship in 2002. And then with Brock's run, I liked it because it was an attraction. It was exclusive when he's there. He shows up. It's a big deal when that champion's there. But they're not going to do it because from a money-making perspective, they're going to make far more money with toys by having two belts than they will by going back to one belt. Where's that other revenue going to come from?
Right. It absolutely limits marketability on their end, not only for, like you said, being able to sell so much more stuff, but actually sell the champions that they're making as well.
Yeah,
you know, like it provides the platform for I can't remember if it was you, Priest, or not, that we had on the show that was bringing up the point on AEW that they're going to have to start incorporating more belts because they need to be able to give more shine to all these athletes that they're bringing in. Do you remember who that was making that point on the show, Kyle?
We've had a couple people at this point that have mentioned that, but I know Priest. It may have been Priest, but
he shook his
I agree with that too.
I don't think that was me, but I'm not opposed to one more belt there. But to your point, Kyle, I mean, you look at the UFC. Like the UFC's weight classes, they have tons and tons and tons of belts with guys, and when a guy wins a belt, no matter what weight class, it automatically elevates him. So same thing in pro wrestling, tons of belts. You win a belt, you're elevated. But go ahead, Kyle. Or I'm sorry, Corey, to your point.
No, I was wrapping up there anyway. I was just saying that that's one of the things that I had heard people say up to this point is that AEW even needs to add more champions so that they can give more people that platform to be able to build themselves into a bigger star, from being able to hold on to a shiny piece of metal that says, I am whatever champion, whatever, like what they're doing with the Owen trophy. Something along those lines. Like,
do you think they'll ever have a brand split over at AEW, Dynamite and Rampage? You think they'll ever split that up?
Not if it doesn't end up being a full-on 2-hour show. Yeah. Like if they keep it how it is now to where it's an hour show, I doubt it.
I think if the roster right now, because I don't think AEW needs more belts because they don't even know how to book the belts they have.
Valid point, but with them bringing on a second show and everything that incorporates that, I don't think they're going to go the whole brand split at this point because I just don't think the roster is swollen enough to that point. But with that being said, I could definitely see them incorporating more belts because they're going to have more airtime and so on and so forth to be able to present more belts. So
they will, especially in this generation. And I mean, a lot of AEW's wrestlers are a whole new generation of wrestling fan themselves. So it's what do they say? The participation trophies, if you will, and that's just how it is. And you will see more belts eventually in AEW. And I think until they figure out how to book their women's belt better and work their TNT belt better, then they shouldn't be adding anything else new.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I think they're doing a better job with now with getting names like Ruby Soho and Britt Baker. I feel like is a great champion for them, bringing in Thunder Rosa. They're starting to get more pieces, but I definitely agree with you. You know, those things need to be beefed up on the AEW end. But to get back to the night one of the draft, one of the biggest things that sticks out to me from night one of the draft, and I'd love to hear what both of your guys' thoughts are, Priest and Jbone. So whichever one of you guys wants to take it first, go ahead. But Hit Row going to SmackDown, and not only Hit Row going to SmackDown, they took the whole group. Now, to be clear for those who don't know, I mean, B-Fab has only had a few matches. I think they said that was only her first match or second match in that street fight that she had on NXT last week against Elektra Lopez, and they took the whole group. Well, you mentioned there being too many belts. Well, now that brings the question, which obviously I haven't gotten to watch NXT yet because it was on while we were getting ready for the show, but with Hit Row going to SmackDown, that also takes the NXT North American Championship with it, which he just won, and he hasn't even defended it in the 3 months that he's had it. So now what are you going to do with that belt? And with there being the draft and all these things, could there be a scenario to where maybe they start to carry those titles onto the other brands? But I don't know.
I doubt it. I think, the brand split doesn't go to effect until, the 22nd?
Yeah, it goes into effect right after Crown Jewel.
So he's got plenty of time to lose it, put somebody over, or plenty of time to make a storyline out of it, and he keeps it, and he gets stripped of it. There's so many. I mean, the old school guy in me says you come up with a good storyline where he gets himself, she takes the belt with him, whatever, and then they won't let him have it on SmackDown. There's a storyline you can come up with there, a creative idea, but they won't do anything like that. He'll probably lose it next week
That was one of the questions I was actually going to pose to you guys with the draft taking place and so many champions actually changing organizations. I'm sure this happens, frequently throughout the drafts that, one of the lower level champs ends up switching promotions. How often in that run, I guess you can say, do they end up losing it before you, like you say, in that month span, basically?
The thing that's weird about this draft is usually when you do the draft, the next night, the rosters take effect.
Yeah.
Oh,
in this sense,
the first time
they really don't do it like that. I feel like they back themselves into a corner because you got to realize these shows in Saudi are all basically paid shows. The prince basically tells them what he wants to see. And that goes a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. WWE still has ultimate say, but let's not get it twisted. That guy's got say in what's going on.
They're paying for a damn good show, and they're paying enough to be able to pick and choose what athletes go out there, basically.
Right. And so with them having matches like you've got the match you mentioned, Corey, you said you thought one of the biggest people that surprised you in moving on night one was the fact that Bianca Belair went to Raw. Yeah. Well, at Crown Jewel, you've got her versus Becky Lynch versus now a returning Sasha Banks in a triple threat match. That's going to be a fucking banger. So they don't want to screw up the card they already got together. But then you throw the flip side to this where it's like, okay, so the draft doesn't take effect for 2 weeks. Well, then what the fuck do you do with them until then? Because that takes me back to my whole point with Hit Row, because I like Hit Row. I'm a big fan of Hit Row. I like everybody in there. I think each one of them bring their own thing. And whether B-Fab can wrestle the best right now or not, she can run her mouth on the mic and looks good and does a good enough job on the outside of the ring getting involved that it works fine for this thing with them against Legado del Fantasma. My only fear with it is Top Dollar and Adonis, Ashanti Adonis. You know, they're a hell of a tag team. I just worry that with them bringing the whole group, including her, up, I just don't want to see them get dropped into losing them in the shuffle, because I feel like they had a really cool vibe with what they were doing with Hit Row and NXT, and it was giving B-Fab time to kind of develop along the way. I just hope that with them getting moved up to the big show on Fox, that doesn't, you know, try to rush things right away, and it makes it fuck something up. I mean, that's just kind of where my head's at with the Hit Row thing. Jbone, what about you, bro?
Dude, it may even be just an experiment. You know what I mean? Like you said, with the ratings and everything, you know, these networks are demanding certain things, and they especially on Raw, but Fox, that's a major network, and they demand certain shit, man. So I feel like with something like that, they need something fresh, something that Fox really didn't have their eyes on, I think. So it gives them kind of a little more wiggle room to experiment with stuff like that. So I honestly, if I really had to guess, I think they will get lost in the shuffle, man. I said that when I seen them, like, damn, like these guys are good on NXT, but we've seen it before. These guys come up from NXT and they're just lost. You know what I mean? I just feel like they're just going to be another victim of that. It sucks too, because they're good, man. Like you said, everybody brings something different, and they're very unique in that way, you know. But I'd say in less than a year, they're going to be back on NXT.
It's good. It's reminiscent to me of like Enzo, Cass, and Carmella coming up, and in a weird way, kind of like the Street Profits. You just have a bunch of old white guys in WWE that doesn't know what to do with people who are trying to appeal to the urban demographic.
Yeah, I can't even argue that, man. I hope that we're wrong, because like I said, I'm a big fan of Hit Row. I got to kick it with Swerve when we were in Florida with Megaran, and he couldn't have been a more cool guy. I said, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they're doing there. Donald, I see you in the comments, man. I appreciate you coming back and checking us out every week, man. We're gonna get to talking a little bit about BCWA. I don't know if you're gonna be there October 16th, but like I just said to Corey, I mean, Priest, we can talk about it a little bit right now. I mean, BCWA comes back October 16th, man. And I was telling Corey, I mean, knockouts and 3 counts and BCWA go back a little ways now. So I'm looking forward to getting back out there to their events. I mean, before you jumped in with us, you know, Jbone was telling us that BCWA was the first place that he saw us, and he can remember being in attendance for when you and old Superstar went head to head for your career, man.
Oh wow. Yeah, back in May of 2008.
Yeah, it was about then. Yeah, I couldn't think of the place. I want to say it was in Taylor somewhere.
It was a Tri-City Trade Center in Southwest Detroit.
Yeah,
Schaefer and Dix.
I mean, they had the video package set up, man. Yeah. I was invested, dude. I was front row, like, damn, this is good shit right here.
I made the video package.
Then when you lost, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, my first time's here. What the hell?
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. That's really happy to hear that. Yeah, I was supposed to be done wrestling that show. I got lured out of retirement, like Terry Funk. I've retired, but before the time I'm 40,
I'll never retire.
I've already retired 4 times, and I'm coming out of retirement Sunday. So shit, like.
Well, what the fuck, man? You can't be just dropping bombs over here. You're coming out of retirement Sunday. I saw something about that. And now, are you talking about old wrestling? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, tell me about it. You got some crazy ass name that I don't think I pronounced right anyway. So please tell me what's going down this Sunday at Old Wrestling, which I am a big fan of that. It's like, obviously in the name, it's like all based from like 1950s kind of ish.
Older. Yeah, older. So
yeah,
I'll be portraying the finest mayor Detroit's ever seen in Mr. Hazen Pingree. Hazen Pingree, there's a statue of him in Detroit. He was the mayor from the late 1800s, early 1900s. I'll be portraying the character of Hazen Pingree. Oddly enough, beard might be a little bit bigger than his, but he was a gentleman with a really bad receding hairline, much like myself, and a big beard. So kind of works out well to be portraying that character. But yeah, old wrestling takes you back to the 1920s. I mean, Matt Cross is the longest reigning world champion in the history of professional wrestling, over 5,000 days now as world champion. And he'll be main eventing that show. You'll have Ricky Shane Page, who's been a very topical name in pro wrestling these days. He portrays Judge Hugo there. He'll be in action as well as a lot of guys who those.
I didn't realize that. I don't know if he was there at the last old wrestling show that I was there. Now, Ricky Shane Page, Corey, just to give you an idea who we're talking about, he was in the War Games match, bro.
Okay.
He was the one that got thrown off the scaffold.
The bigger guy at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the guy that got thrown off the scaffold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my prized pupils, I guess you could call it maybe like a relative, an much older relative, Babe Del Rubio, will be in action as well. A lot of talent on the Detroit show. The last Detroit show, they used a lot of local talent, but Old Wrestling has had their staple of guys, and they're bringing in like Ricky Shane Page didn't wrestle the Detroit show. I think that was the only Old Wrestling show he didn't work at. I've been to a couple old shows behind the scenes, so I'm excited to be in front of the scenes for that one. That's Sunday at the Detroit Whiskey Factory, 5 p.m. They're in Detroit downtown, right behind Ford Field. So when the Lions get their ass kicked,
so Corey, are we going or what, bro?
As long as it doesn't interfere with my daughter's birthday party, I told you that.
I'm talking about this weekend. That's this Sunday.
Oh, this Sunday?
Old Wrestling is this Sunday. It's at the Whiskey Factory downtown, dog.
Yeah. That very well could be a possibility.
Well, hell, man. You check out Old Wrestling, you just might run into. What'd you say?
What time?
What time are we going down, Priest? 5 o'clock? 5 o'clock.
5 p.m. is bell time, and real fun show. Should be a lot of fun.
I'm telling you, you ain't never seen no shit like this. It'll be entertaining as fuck, dude.
And then like the last Detroit show was. I mean, one thing Old Wrestling has done a really, really great job of is they take guys who are on the cusp of stardom on the indies, and they give them a character that fits. So, like MJF, before he broke, was playing, I think his name was like Sandy Bunker, and he was like a rich golf guy. So he was kind of portraying the same character he was as MJF, but he was like a 1920s, like Legend of Bagger Vance era golfer, better than you, it's still, doing his thing. And then Danhausen last year on the Detroit show, basically
Danhausen's the shit.
Basically playing a vampire character, and the real clever idea he wasn't getting into the ring until the referee told him to get into the ring and invited him in, and that's when he got in the ring. And just really intelligent, over the top stuff. Wrestling fans can appreciate that goes into it. And then Danhausen, he was on the cusp of breaking then, and he broke. So. There's a lot of young talent on this show as well, so it'll be interesting to see a year from now who was on this Old Wrestling show that's now making national headlines. But that's going to be a good one. And then, as you mentioned, BCWA October 16th, the return. It's been like 17 months in the making. I'm looking forward to this show. It should be a good one. No one really knows what's happening from a fan perspective, which is what I like. Because we're coming in, we're kind of starting fresh. We're not trying to build up any angles or feuds on the internet. It's just like you come to the show, you buy your ticket, and you're going to just see what unfolds for you. And a lot of surprises and tricks up our sleeve potentially, and hopefully it all plays out as it does up here with some of the minds that be behind the scenes. But we think we got a good one lined up for everybody, and should be a lot of your favorite BCW wrestlers back in action at the Cope in Wyandotte, 6 p.m. showtime, Saturday the 16th.
That one I can guarantee we'll be at. I will be in the building for BCWA. I don't know if Corey will be making it to that one, but going forward.
That's the one I was referring to may interfere with my daughter's birthday party, so I gotta confirm.
It's all good. If you can't make this one, just know that we're going to be back. We're going to be ALIV kicking like Priest is always saying. We're going to be back in our normal spot over there at BCWA, and if you guys pay attention, you never know what the hell we come back with from over there, so there's a lot to talk about. But before I get into what went down on the MMA side of things, Jbone, you're being shouted out in the fucking comments here, and Nate has a pretty good question that I think all three, you, me, and Priest, can answer. Nate said, Jbone, top 3 crowd pops of all time. So since the question was directed at you, top 3 crowd pops of all time.
Man, all right. So I'm just gonna go with my favorite ones. My number 3, probably not a lot of people know this one, but Bulldog and Bret Hart SummerSlam '92. When Bulldog won that one, dude, the place fucking exploded. It was incredible. Number 2, probably the CM Punk return. Number 1 for me personally, just because he's probably my favorite of all time, the Y2J pop, man. When he came to WWE, that was something. Just everything that happened in that particular wrestling moment was fucking huge. So that's my top one. Jericho, man.
All right. Well, Priest, I need to know, man, what do you think the top 3 crowd pops are of all time? And for any of you guys that are watching, let us know in the comments. If you've got a top 3 crowd pops, let us know. I want to know who the fuck you think's got it. But what do you think, Priest?
Hard to dispute those 3. I mean, Jbone the fact that he laid out British Bulldog and Bret Hart, that's my favorite match of all time, and that's always been in my top 3. So not many people mention that one, so bad respect to Jbone for bringing that one up. I agree with that one. Hard to dispute Punk's return. Hard to dispute
Brad,
Jericho's
I was there for that one. Ring the fucking bell.
However, to me, the loudest pop of all time is when Mankind won the title. But it's not when Mankind won the title. It's when Austin's music hit. It's January '99 when that glass breaks in Worcester, Massachusetts. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. There is nothing like that I've heard since. You could in a smaller like Worcester, Mass isn't a huge venue by all, but that pop was deafening. That to me is the number 1 pop of all time.
All right.
One honorable mention because I'll go with Davey Boy and Brett. I'll go with Austin, and then one that's would have been smaller crowd, but thunderous ovation of just pure shock was it was an ECW, and it was it was when Rick Rude debuted in ECW and pulled the hood off. Did the spot there. That crowd. Yep. I mean, the cameras were shaking. It was so loud in that arena. And that was ECW's loudest pop. Raven's return was big too, but the Rick Rude one, no one saw coming, and that was huge. And it's underrated because it's not that memorable of a moment. Jake's is more memorable. Jerry Lawler's more memorable. But Rick Rude got the biggest pop.
Okay, so for me, I'm never good with the order of them, so I'm just going to give you 3 of them. The CM Punk one is definitely in there. Being that I was there and seeing that in person, that crowd was losing their fucking shit. They were losing their shit. Brad, I see you in the comments. Brad says Hardy Boys at WrestleMania 33. Now that one, I can't argue that either, because I was telling the kid that was sitting right in front of me, I was like, there's no way it can be the Hardys because they just wrestled at Ring of Honor the night before and dropped the titles in Ring of Honor the night before. And then sure shit, here come the Hardy Boys. So I'll give that one an honorable mention. Another one that's big for me that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to Stone Cold. Now, a lot of my favorite ones are always surrounded by Stone Cold because he was one of my favorites. But the first time that Austin stunned McMahon in the Garden, that crowd went fucking nuts because nobody had ever touched Vince before. And at that point, that was when like everybody started to figure out, oh shit, this guy's really involved more than just the commentator that he was at the time. And I feel like that was the whole genesis for the Mr. McMahon character. So I personally have always been partial to that one. And another one that always sticks out to me, and it surprising because, you know, historically he's gotten shitty pops a lot of times, but it's one of the ones that I remember as a kid when Triple H returned after he tore his quad. When Triple H tore his quad, when him and Stone Cold were the 2-man power trip, and then he tore his quad and came back, that place went fucking bananas when he came back. And Triple H hadn't really had a pop like that. So, like,
I would say that actually going with are you going with the Royal Rumble pop with Triple H?
Mm-hmm.
Because that was huge. I think.
No, I take it back. I mean, I meant the Raw one when he came back on Raw. Edge's
pop at the Royal Rumble 2 years ago was
massive. Holy shit, yes. Holy shit, that very well could honestly that could kick out the Triple H one, honestly, because I don't think anybody was really expecting that.
No.
Like it was all in speculation, but dude, when he came out, we were doing a party with our buddies from Breaking Down the Ring, which if you guys are watching this, now that things are finally getting back to normal, we can go back to having pay-per-view parties. So you guys got to make sure you come out once we can manage to get that going again. But yeah, dude, that was a real, I don't know. That was yeah, that one hit everybody right in the feels for sure. Yeah. The same as the Hardy Boys one did at WrestleMania 33. I can't argue that at all. But wrestling wasn't the only thing that we had going down in this weekend. Okay. Quickly to recap the other couple things that jumped out to me on night one. You also had the Mysterios went to Raw as a package deal. You also had Jeff Hardy go to SmackDown, which thank God he went to SmackDown. Please let them build Jeff Hardy back up because I've been getting tired of seeing what the fuck they've been doing with Jeff Hardy lately. I'm just saying. And Austin, past guest of the show, motherfucking show, Austin Theory is back on Raw. So yeah, dude, check out past guest of the show, Austin Theory. We interviewed Austin right before the Evolve 10th anniversary special that was live on the WWE Network. So yeah, like I said, check that out. But I'm glad that Austin Theory's back up here. I just pray that his run goes better this time because I've been a big fan of him for a long time, but it just seemed like when he came up the first time, they didn't really know what to do with him. And then he went back down to NXT with Johnny Gargano. So I'm looking forward to that. But as I mentioned, bro, so this UFC card that we had had some duds, but it also had some ones that were surprisingly good too. The first one that I got on my notes that jumps right off the page to me was the Nico Price versus Charles Oliveira fight. And I say that for a few different reasons. Number one, I've never seen Cowboy Oliveira cry in my life. And he was in like full-blown tears on his way to the cage. Like was singing along to the song and is in full-blown fucking tears as he's walking into the cage. And it seemed like, at least for the first round, that kind of fucked up his momentum because he wasn't getting off like he normally does. And because of that, I feel like it made it easier for Nico Price to win round one. But then again, on the very flip side of that, though, I have to give credit to his corner because his corner went to him in round two before they went into round two and were like, look, you lost round one. You got to get your shit together and you need to be aggressive. And then the next round, he comes out and starts cracking Nico Price. Yeah. So, I mean, not to say that Nico Price wasn't throwing shots, but I mean, that second round, Oliveira came out and was cracking his ass in the second round.
I wouldn't have been mad whoever they would have gave that decision to, because I feel like, unfortunately, with Nico Price, even though I'm a huge fan, sometimes his first rounds are a little bit lackluster. He seems to be slightly a slow starter at times. But with that being said, I don't know what the issue was with Cowboy Oliveira, because he's normally somebody that is big excitement, like you were going to bring up with the Johnny Walker.
I feel like he was the second two rounds. I think it just took him a little bit to get going.
No, I'm talking about in his walkouts. He's usually like big, like hands in the air,
right,
playing along to the music and so on and so forth. So
kind of like Johnny Walker was.
That's what I was saying. Is I know you were going to bring that up later. He's usually very reminiscent of that. Like he's usually like got the cowboy hat on. He's in the zone. We didn't see that version of him, and I don't know if it had to do with something with Nico Price, because they were both very friendly all week during media and everything.
Well, I think it had to do with something that he had going on outside the cage, man.
Well, that was going to be my second point. Is they talked very highly of each other. They both talked about how they have a fuck ton of kids, which I don't know how they both deal with. I think Cowboy Oliveira had 11 or something, and Nico Price had 6 or
Jesus.
Something.
He's got a whole football team.
Yeah, they were in media day. The question was posed to Oliveira, like, Nico Price just had his 6th kid. What would you recommend? And he said, have a vasectomy 3 kids ago or some shit. That was like his answer. Was like, should have snipped that one in the butt a while ago.
That shit's part of his training or something, dude. That's crazy.
Well, that's why I say, like, I don't know if they were extra friendly, so he wasn't necessarily wanting to go in there and beat somebody's ass who he had formed even a slight friendship throughout the week, because normally he has very competitive notions with all of his opponents. Or, like you say, was it something he was dealing with out of the cage? Was that fight dedicated to somebody in his mind? Did he lose somebody in his family, or whatever the case be? That we may never know, but you definitely seen the emotions weigh extremely heavy on him in his walkout and also in that first round.
Yeah, I completely agree, dude. I haven't heard anything like him come out and really talk much as to what it was that was getting him, but like if you're paying attention, like he was in full blown like tears, like getting into the cage.
It could have also been pressure for his career. I mean, even though he's an incredible fan favorite and stuff and always puts on great performances, if I'm not mistaken, he was on a 3-fight losing skid going into this fight. So he may have been feeling the pressure of his UFC career going into it as well. You know,
very well could have been, but either way, that was a banger of a fight for Nico Price, man. Go ahead.
What was that? What was Oliveira's last fight before that?
I will look it up right now.
Give me 2 seconds. I'll look up his record.
I'm looking it up right now.
In my head.
I'm looking it up right now. But yeah, dude, Oliveira is always a fan favorite. He's always fun to talk about. Priest, did you get to watch the fights?
I did not. I missed them Saturday night. I was at Slipknot.
He fought Randy Brown.
Why didn't you say something, damn it?
Randy Brown. When was that? Why do I not remember that?
That was just recent, too.
April.
Yeah, I was thinking like Oliveira. Like my head, I'm like, Oliveira hasn't fought in like a year and a half or 2 years. So maybe it was just like a. But now if he fought in April, I mean, he's fought back with fans in the building. So
he beat Peter Sabata back in July, and then he lost in October to Rachmanov.
I do remember that fight.
Yeah, which was a good fight. I remember if I'm not mistaken, no, he got submitted, but it was after some real hands were given in that fight. Then he lost by submission yet again, though. I feel like ate a lot of shots by Randy Brown in his last fight. So it was only a 2-fight skid coming into this, not 3. But that being said, it still was a lot of pressure, I feel like, on his shoulders going into this. And that very well could have been what we were seeing going into it. But speculation on that end.
Well, I'm going to drop some pressure on Priest's shoulders. How do we keep ending up at the same concert and never fucking end up linking up?
I don't know. I bought my ticket at about 2:30 p.m. day of.
So did I.
I said, fuck it, I'm going. I just went.
Ask Jbone, swear to God.
Yeah, I realized that is the 12th time I'd seen Slipknot.
Oh,
that was the first time I'd ever seen him. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I had not seen him yet.
Not to divulge into a concert again for the second time, but has the band deteriorated in sound throughout the years like many bands do when you see them live?
No.
Okay. That's good to know. That's good.
They totally still sounded good. Just like I said, some of the songs hit a little different now than when I was younger and didn't really pay attention to what the fuck they were really saying.
But they still put on a hell of a performance.
Oh yeah, dude. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely not like. I mean, as I said, I've seen them 12 times. They're definitely not at their peak, but they're not like.
They're still well worth seeing.
They're still excellent. Yeah, they're still an excellent show. I've never seen a bad Slipknot show. Yeah, I mean they actually feel like a tighter band these days than they did like when I would say they were at their peak of like insane live show. Like 2006, 2007, Slipknot was in. I mean, when I saw them at Ozfest '99, in the parking lot at like noon at DTE, I was like, this band was wild. And I'm like, I'd never heard of them. Their first CD wasn't even out. I bought their first CD the day it came out, a couple days after that Ozfest. But seeing them at Harpo's in October of '99 when the place was on fire, they literally set the place on fire and had full-fledged riots where they had to evacuate the building with bear mace. That was the most insane concert I've ever been to.
I could imagine. Shit, that sounds like it makes for some fun stories.
Yeah, and they weren't even headlining. Like Machine Head was the headliner, so Machine Head didn't even get to play that night. It was the Live in La Vida Loca tour with Cold Chamber. Well, Amen opened, Cold Chamber, then Slipknot. Machine Head was headlining, and Slipknot just tore the place down literally. And they were like, "This band is too big for Harpo's," and they haven't even had a headlining tour, and they were too big. So, but yeah, that was insane. Slipknot shows back then, but 06, 07 was like their live performance. There was so much production to it. It was insane to watch, but you could tell the band didn't really like each other at all. Where I think now you can tell they're a tight knit group. They like each other. There's no animosity within the band, and they sound great. They're still, if not, they sounded tighter than ever. The last couple times I've seen them, like they sound tight. Nobody's just off doing their own thing, which used to happen a lot.
Well, didn't they reduce the number of stage members? No, they did not.
Still 9, yeah.
Is it really? Wow. Even after all these years, they're still Wow.
Yeah, and it's I don't want to go way deep into it, but from their first album, it's still 6 of the guys from the first album.
Like I said, man, it was a great show. Definitely some of the songs hit a little different from when I was younger. And I mean, Jbone was trying to get us killed by some chick with a fucking hatchet. And yeah, dude.
He's just trying to hook you up, Kyle.
Hey, man. I was just trying to get
Look
you
here, bro. I don't know what it is. Kyle's trying to put me on blind dates. This motherfucker's trying to get me killed by chicks with hatchets. I mean, I don't know, bro. I don't know, bro.
Guys.
Sounds worth it. Yeah.
Man.
Sounds like I needed to find you guys. I was just sitting there by myself.
Dude,
down in the
I
pavilion.
try to tell you all the time to come hang out with us, Priest.
Look,
I tell you to
go out there then, man. They come back next year. I'm doing another Not Best tailgate party. That's what I did that day. So we all got to link up, man. We'll hang out before the show. We'll go in the show together.
We'll have to link up next weekend at BCWA too, bro.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get down there for that too.
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds like a blast.
I won't get you killed. I promise you that.
I mean,
look, you guys on the hill?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Wait a minute. So wait a minute. I cannot get off this without saying it. I hope that this guy sees it, and I hope he sees it. I really do. Anyway, can we just talk about that mosh pit for like 1 second? Just 1 second. We were standing on the hill. Now, look, I got no problem with people getting rowdy. Hot damn it, I'm with it. Get rowdy. I want you to have a good time and all that. But general rule is if somebody is away from the mosh pit, I was not standing around the edge of said mosh pit. I was away because I know how it works. Priest, am I wrong for telling a guy that who is swinging his arms everywhere and acting like he's a fucking octopus and is coming 10 foot away from the mosh pit? Am I wrong for telling this guy, hey, if you're gonna keep coming out this close, if one of those punches hits me, I'll put you to sleep and lay you out right next to the mosh pit? Because Jbone is my witness. How far was I away from that pit? And did I not try to catch the guy so that he didn't fall the first time? And then I still almost got hit. And I'm like, all right, dude.
Yeah.
You come over here one more time and it's not going to be good.
We both told him. I said, listen, man, we don't want that like over here. So we'll keep you in. We'll be your wall. I'll be your wall. But if you start putting your hands on me, dude, it's going to go down. We and him both said, you got one more chance, dude. He never came back, luckily. But you just don't do
I
that,
just stopped and looked at him. I'm like, if you hit me, I will put you to sleep. I don't give a shit that we're on a hill.
Nobody would have paid no mind to it either. They just let him sit there.
They would have too. And the worst of it is, I wasn't even trying to be hostile, but like we talked about before we went on the air, like, I mean, this dude's swinging his arms and it's coming like this close to my face. And I'm like, all right, dude, like, all right, like, I'm all for having fun, but if I get punched, I'm sorry. I don't think there's going to be any more keeping my calm, cool, collected. I don't see it. I think once we get past there, things weren't calm, cool, and collected. And speaking of calm, cool, and collected, clearly things weren't calm, cool, and collected for Kevin Holland on Saturday, huh?
Oh man, that fight could not have not only ended like the foul itself for anybody that didn't see what happened. the UFC now is being very, I guess, strict or however you'd want to word this about the word headbutt. It was considered a accidental collision of heads. However they word it now, but they're being very weird about the word headbutt because that implies that you were trying to headbutt somebody, I guess. But they had a clash of heads deemed by their terms. But it put
Get out of here,
Kevin
bro.
Holland straight face planted into the fucking mat, eyes rolled back into his head. And Dan Mergliotta, being the ref on the case, seeing the foul that took place, noticed that once Kevin Holland basically face planted on the ground, that the turns out that the octagon's hard enough to wake you up when you're knocked out. So he immediately sprung back up, defended himself enough. So Big Dan didn't even bother stopping the fight, just rolled his finger for the replay guys to watch it. Allowed, was it Kyle or Chris? I always get the two confused. That was Kyle. That was Kyle Dawkins, correct? Not Chris Dawkins? Yeah. I always get the two confused because Chris and Kyle. But either way, Kyle Dawkins did exactly what he was supposed to do. Take absolutely nothing away from him. He was still in the means of a fight and searched for a finish, was able to find it. But then upon them reviewing the footage, they ended up reversing the call to a no contest. After the fact that we had all watched Kevin Holland get tapped out because they didn't bother stopping the fight when he just got knocked out and face planted on the ground. So it was just bad in every possible situation. You feel for Kyle Dawkins because he did everything right in the situation. You know, he also was a headbutt is two-sided, you know. He also felt some of that damage and was still able to get a finish throughout it, which is what it is. Did everything right and basically gets a win taken away from him. Doesn't get paid his win bonus, now only gets his show money. And it's just unfortunate on both ends. It really is. It's just, that's the only way I can describe it. I'm glad that they at least reversed the call and didn't leave it a loss for Kevin Holland, because I feel like that would have been like the ultimate fuck up here.
I feel like this had to be a fight where UFC had to like throw him some of like that side money or something, right? Because
they should.
Because I mean, let's face it. Had this not gone down with that headbutt, now again, Kevin Lee was looking good before that, so it's not like Dawkins was killing him. But at the same time, dude, could you imagine if that would have sat through? That means his brother had that nasty ass fucking knockout. Then he comes in and gets a rear naked choke finish. I mean, that's a hell of a 1-2 punch from a brother tandem in the UFC. I mean, that's a whole nother thing.
Well,
do you think?
I got a question on that. I got a question on that fight, Corey. Actually, when that typically happens, I know it's a rarity for a foul like that to happen, but when that happens, do they usually stop the fight for something like that, or does that just keep going? Kind of like you got the NFL replays, or the play just keeps going until they whistle it dead, and then they come back to it.
Well, they let the fight go ahead.
Normally, if it's that egregious, right? Like normally headbutts, like you've seen it affect title fights. Like I refer back to like the Joseph Benavidez fight with Figueiredo from last year. I don't know if you've seen that fight or not, but he took a nasty headbutt and suffered a severe cut, started bleeding from it, and they didn't stop the fight then.
Yeah.
Other circumstances, and when it's that apparent that damage was caused that is fight altering, I feel as though they should. Yeah. But it's kind of at the referee's discretion, and that's a big issue in MMA. Is a ton of the rules in the moment and depending on the situation are all at the referee's discretion in that moment. So
because I feel like, I mean, when the guy gets kicked in the cup, they stop the fight. The guy gets poked in the eye, they usually give him a few minutes, something like that, especially that aggressive. The guy fell flat on his feet, he was out.
But the problem is, it was like hitting the ground almost woke him back up, and then he went into immediately trying to fight back.
Yeah.
So I
feel like if you're Big Dan, though, right? Like if you're the ref that does make that call, right? Dan Mergliotta, he rolls his finger and said, "I want replay on what just happened, but I'm going to allow the action to continue." Don't you have to stand by that if somebody gets a finish? I mean, like,
I'm
a Kevin Holland fan. I am a fan of also both the Dawkins brothers. But I wanted to see Kevin Holland right the ship going into this fight. That was my narrative going into it. So it was unfortunate, and I hate to say that, but if you're going to make that call and allow the fight to continue, like I was watching the Anik Florian podcast, and Kenny Florian's been very vocal on this since it kind of played out, I guess you could say. If somehow roles were reversed and Kevin Holland, after suffering that big headbutt knockout, yada yada, was able to get the finish in roughly about the same time Kyle Dawkins did, would they have then reversed that decision just because the person that appeared to take more damage in the headbutt, which is a two-sided damaging thing, got it's just confusing, man. The worst thing in my eyes that you can do when you see a very apparent foul like that is just allow the action to continue.
So I agree with that, and I thought the same thing, because at the end of the day, you can't be mad at Dawkins because he did what he was supposed to.
Yeah.
But that being said, Jimmy Smith, who also happens to be your Monday Night Raw commentator, brought up a very good point, because on the flip side of that, if we're playing devil's advocate for Kevin Holland, I mean, what the hell was Kevin Holland supposed to do? You get knocked out, you were in a fight before you got knocked out, and you wake back up and got a guy over top of you. I'm not going to just sit there and let you fucking smoke me in the face. Right. I'm going to try to do something. So at the same hand, while I agree with that, I also agree with what Jimmy said too, because I mean, what other option was he going to do? Sit there and turtle up in a ball and just let you just wail on him? Like, no. I mean, at the same time, I can't be mad at them for making that decision either, because on Kevin Holland's end, I mean, it wasn't even a question. That was definitely a headbutt. There wasn't even a question of whether that was a knee, a punch, an elbow, a nothing. That was plain as day. Now, again, I take nothing away from Dawkins, and I totally agree with the fact of what you said of, you got to let it play out. But then again, like I said, with what Jimmy said, it brings up a lot of good points. Again, for any of you guys that are watching, I want to know what you guys think about this fight, because now that takes us to the main event, where Johnny Walker and
quick point before you do jump into that, I do want to note that they already announced that they are running this match back. I believe it's November 11th or November 5th. Something.
They verbally agreed, but they haven't locked in the date yet. There's been a couple dates have been thrown out, but they haven't locked nothing in. It's just been verbally agreed so far. But the main event, dude, I was really looking forward to this fight. You have two guys that are very exciting, very very explosive. Obviously, Santos having a good performance against John Jones, even though he had blown out his knees, and then never really has gotten back to the same. And then Johnny Walker, making the move over to SPG Ireland, which is notoriously the gym of the notorious one, Conor McGregor. I don't know, man. So John Kavanaugh is a good coach, but I don't know if I agree with the things they were saying in the corner to Johnny Walker, because in my opinion, neither one of those guys was aggressive enough.
Not at all. Not even a little bit. It was I was worried when I seen this matchup, I guess, being put together, because a lot of times when you get these matchups that are super crazy hyped with two extreme knockout power, one punch type of guys, creative strikers, so on and so forth, people that really go in there and do their work with their hands, I guess you could say, the matches don't end up playing out. Like, it seems more often than not even that's the case, when it's like a super hyped fight for two strikers that are, going to go neck and neck. It just doesn't happen sometimes, especially in these 5-round environments when you're talking main event fights. They're both athletes are trying to conserve enough energy so that they're not tired and come the 4th and the 5th. And it was just the accumulation of everything that could have happened, I guess, bad. I mean, other than the fact I was rooting for Santos and he got the win, I was happy for that. It was kind of a reoccurring theme on my end for the night. I had pointed out with the Kevin Holland thing, I was wanting to see him get the win back in the W column. It was the same thing for Santos. He's been on a skid, like you had noted, Kyle, since the his title fight against John Jones. I wanted to see him get back into contention at 205. I feel like he's still a worthy contender. This fight didn't show that. Even though he got the win, even though he's gonna, rise in the rankings because of it, this fight didn't show it. All because, like you say, SBG Ireland, man, I feel like they're fucking up Johnny Walker, man. He was the most creative, exciting striker that everybody was talking about before he fucked up his shoulder, which injuries happen. His was a celebration, so dumb on his part, but whatever the case be. And it seems like ever since he's went out there, his style's changed. You could even hear, like you were noting, they had the corner cams and stuff like that. And all Kavanaugh's talking about is you're doing great as he's not even doing anything, throwing maybe 20 punches in the round and missing well over half of those. Just go out there and continue to point fight him, throw a couple leg kicks. And it was like, but you're talking about somebody with extreme knockout power, much more range than their opponent. What about stick the jab in their face and then throw a heavy 2 after a couple jabs? Or what about target the body with your long leg kicks? Or anything? Anything would have been better than just go out there and continue to outpoint them, even though you weren't doing that. It just, I hope that's not what we're seeing, but it looked bad on the Kavanaugh side. Real bad.
Well, it looked bad for both of them. And Priest, I mean, that's as good a question to ask to either you or Jbone, whichever one of you guys want to take it. But I mean, the good question out of this is you got a guy in Thiago Santos who essentially they were talking about, well, if he can get a win here over Johnny Walker and look good, he might be able to just slide his way right back in for a title shot. Well, I'll be honest with you, even though Johnny Walker lost, I don't feel like this win did a whole lot of shit for Santos either, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't.
It doesn't sound like it. And the one thing, whenever you get fights like this that are high, because I'm familiar with both guys, I've seen both fight. They both are very exciting fighters. I feel like whenever there's a big fight with a lot of pressure, a lot of guys fight cautious and they just try to counter punch. And when you've got two guys going in there waiting to counter, not a lot happens. I mean, being Jbone, you seem to be a little bit more in touch with what happened. So I don't know what
are your thoughts on this fight, bro?
I don't think he did anything. He shouldn't even move up, man. To be honest, that fight proved nothing. Like Corey said, there was nothing there. That fight was supposed to be full of fireworks, full of excitement, and it was a dud, dude. If you ask me, there's nothing there. And Dana White's pretty vocal on that stuff. If you don't show me nothing, you shouldn't get nothing. The way I see it. I mean, I know rankings are rankings, a win's a win, but what are you going to do with that guy next?
It's not like either guy made a statement at all either. Like, even in a win, like, in my opinion, I mean, I feel like I'm talking shit here, but at the same time, I just feel like in that high profile of a spot for that fight to be in, I don't think this is a fight that knocks either guy maybe down the rankings so much. But at the same time, I don't see it being anything that's going to like rocket Thiago Santos up the damn ranks either, because he didn't really do a whole lot. I mean, Johnny Walker didn't look all busted up by the time the fight was over.
What was he ranked? Thiago Santos, what was he, like 4 or 5, something like that, somewhere in there?
Maybe 6 at the highest.
Somewhere. The thing with a guy like Thiago Santos is he falls into the victim with a lot of Brazilian fighters, but they don't bring any personality to the table. They're all just talent. And when he goes out there and he's not destroying people or putting together wins or looking dominant, that's not going to move him up the ranks. He's not going to sell tickets with his personality. So like Bobby Walker's got charisma. He's got some personality. So even if he would have won in this, like I said, I didn't see the fight, but it sounds like for this fight, but if you got a guy with a little bit of personality who pulls off a win in a boring fight, you can do more with that guy than you can if a guy with no personality, even if he is a good fighter. Diego says he's a good fighter, but he doesn't sell tickets.
Well, you had brought up what they do with him next. I think maybe somebody like Paul Craig would be like a perfect fight for him. Somebody that's moving up the 205 contention is now becoming one of the highly, top 5, top 7 contenders in the division. I feel like, he got a win, but how high should you go off something like that? I feel as though that fight, like Kyle had noted, if he if this was some crazy impressive war of a fight, you're maybe talking that Thiago Santos with one more fight. He was probably in the number one contenders fight after that one. With this fight being what happened, I think we're now 2, maybe even 3 fights out.
He's gonna have to fight down. He's fighting somebody under him again, most likely.
He's going to have to. I mean, there's not really any way to go with it. And it's sad to say that because, like you said, Johnny Walker's entrance was fire. If you follow us at KO3C Pod, I mean, I was commenting about it as soon as I saw it. I mean, him and Michelle Pejeda, or however the hell you say his last name, dude.
You got it.
They were getting it on the way out to the cage. So, I mean, you put all that together and get him back to, how he normally fights, we'll see what happens. I don't know if he moves teams from SBG or what happens, but any of you guys, if you check this out on the podcast platform or any of that stuff, like, let us know in the comments. But Corey, I know before we get off MMA and go over night 2 of the draft, man, I watched Gambred FC and shout out Andy the Crazian, bro. This chick's talking about snatching people's souls out at the weigh-in, and then Andy the Crazian went in there and beat her ass, dude.
That's what I was just about to say. Wasn't it her opponent? Like, how dare you, bitch? I'm gonna snatch you.
Yeah, I'm gonna snatch your soul out, and then got her ass beat in about 30 or 40 seconds.
So it's unfortunate because I watched the fight and I had actually missed a couple of fights because there was a little bit of issue in the beginning. It wouldn't let me rewind. So you had noted, Kyle, that you were watching it on Sunday night. I believe it was at that point. So I had went back and watched a couple beginning fights. Well, that fight had came back on. I'm like, it's a short one. I'll watch it through again. I'm pretty sure she broke her opponent's nose within about like 20 seconds. It was like her first flurry of punches. So that's what put her out.
She blasted her ass up.
Yeah, she was not trying to deal with that fucking blown out nose, which I do not blame her one bit.
And then
you could see I was sitting there watching it with my old lady Robin in the background. I was like, Robin, when have you ever seen a girl named Andy? I just like randomly threw that fact out to her, as they were making the walkouts and shit. And then chaos ensued 40 seconds later. And I was like, oh, okay.
Well, and then they had a good main event too. You had Rob Emerson, formerly of the UFC, against Charles, now Felony Bennett, which first of all, Charles Bennett is still a savage. But how the fuck is he still fighting when the man is like literally 30-43 with one no contest?
Kyle, when you were figuring out
Crazy Horse?
Yes.
We were sitting there talking about it, and he's on like what, a 17-fight skid or something right now?
Dude, it might be even worse than that.
He's fighting for cheap, dude. That's what it is. He's fighting for cheap.
Crazy Horse how does he get sanctioned?
He was in the main event of this motherfucker, dude. He was in both of Masvidal's cards so far, and he was in the main event of this motherfucker.
Dude, 14 years ago, the guy was punch drunk.
I think every time somebody gives that question, which is a very fucking valid question if you ask me.
And he draws.
But every time somebody does that, they go back and look at his last fight that he lost, and they're like, but look at this first 3 minutes of the fight where he almost won. Could have, like, if he landed 2 more punches, would have got the knockout.
He'll always have a puncher's chance in any fight that he's ever in.
Yeah. And
Charles Bennett will have a chance in any fight in which he can throw his fucking hands.
I'm stunned right now that dude is still fighting. Like, that guy, I mean, he's talking personality and a guy who can sell tickets. That's why he still fights. Shit. Crazy Horse, man.
He did all of his media with his glasses and completely.
I believe it.
I'm like,
he's a sociopath.
And they're still talking about the fact that he knocked Vanderlei Silva out in the locker room in Pride, even though that was years ago.
Well, right, that's when he was relevant.
Well,
yeah, you got
that brings up a good question that I want to ask you and Jbone. Jbone, you've been quiet a little bit. So we all know that Gambred FC is obviously the brainchild of one George Masvidal, who got his fame originally from fighting with Kimbo out in the street fights on YouTube. So now you have Gambred FC, which is it's bare knuckle MMA. So now it's basically what they were doing inside a cage, although back in those fights, they were only really boxing. So what are your guys' thoughts on bare knuckle MMA? I got to say, I was pretty fucking entertained by what I saw, although it just like in the BKFC stuff, you'll see some really good guys and then you'll see some other guys that are like journeyman type stuff. But what are your thoughts on bare knuckle MMA?
I'm not with it, dude. I'm more of the traditional, UFC, pride fighting, stuff like that. Put some gloves on, man. Protect yourself. You know what I mean? Like this stuff. But
in Pride Day, we're still kicking people in the face on the ground and shit.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, though, when I seen that Chris Levin was fighting over there in bare knuckle, that's when I was like, okay, I gotta see this. I have to see that because Chris Levin was one of my favorites, dude. Win or lose,
he looked.
That dude
I was so impressed with Chris Levin in his retirement fight, man. Shout out Chris Levin. I'm glad
that dude is a maniac, man.
He looked great in his retirement fight. He fucking knocked out one of the young up and comers for BKFC and put him on his ass, man. It was a pride moment.
Did I see correctly? Did he call out one of the Paul brothers on Twitter or something?
Yeah, I hope so. Let this guy get a payday.
I read that. I thought I read
all right.
He gave him like 2 days to respond, and there's something like that. I thought I read that somewhere.
Well, at least get a payday.
He did. I forget which one of the two.
As far as the bare knuckle goes, for me, like I'm kind of with you, Jbone. I get it. I'm not with it. It doesn't feel like a sport to me. Even if it's as sanctioned as it is, it feels more like human cockfighting. Like that's what that is. Like there's the gloves and the rules. Is what make MMA a sport, and like bare knuckle fighting. Like there's rules, but it just feels so much more like
it's almost like a step backwards from what UFC did.
Yes,
a step back.
But it's crazy you say that too, because it's crazy because even in saying that, Bare Knuckle FC is the first promotion that's giving fighters fucking pensions and shit.
Right.
If you fight over
right.
They are doing a very good job of taking care of their athletes and stuff in that regard. One thing I would be remiss if we didn't bring it up, though, they actually did experience their first death in BKFC too. Which what you didn't hear about that, Kyle? I forgot to send you that in the notes. But one of their athletes, I guess.
So he died from complications, though. He didn't die in the ring.
Yeah, he didn't die in the ring. No,
okay, I was gonna say I've heard about this, but I was like, I didn't think anybody died in the ring.
Well, and I've done the research from what MMA articles and stuff have made their way to the surface at this point, and everybody's being kind of vague, and a lot of people are like your guys' ilk, where they're not necessarily a huge fan of BKFC and what they're doing. Like you say, it's kind of like a regression to the sport in a lot of their eyes. So they're like kind of going out of their way to tiptoe around saying as if it happened like directly because of things that happened in the in the squared circle, or which isn't the case. But what happened was, from what I've been able to figure out to this point, is one of their athletes suffered a bad knockout, face planted really hard, suffered a very bad spinal injury, and was partially paralyzed. And due to the partial paralyzation, his body was unable to fight off a severe pneumonia that he caught. So between the two, I guess, is what they're blaming for the medical death. But a lot of these articles that I've been reading are all pointing directly to just the neck incident and talking about as if it was, like you're saying, Kyle, something that happened like on the night of the event or something like that, which isn't the case. So,
all right. I got something to say about that because, again, I've been around the fight game now for I've been around the fight game now for better part of the last 16 years. So here's the thing. While I agree that bare knuckle is definitely more violent than MMA and boxing, or in this case, bare knuckle boxing versus regular boxing. But I have to point out here, these guys and girls all know what the fuck they're getting into when you get into this ring. And you can't you cannot single out bare knuckle and say, well, he got knocked out real bad in bare knuckle and he had his spine get detached, because how many times in the UFC have we seen a guy get fucking nailed with a head kick and the referee and nobody watching was expecting it to end and the guy just claps on the mat? That's the thing. Unfortunately, it's like they always say in the WWE, but the shit's not ballet.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I totally understand that it could be a little bit more damage, but it's also been proven at this point that if you look at the stats in bare knuckle versus the amount of punches that are normally landed in an MMA fight or a boxing fight, you actually take less damage in bare knuckle a lot of times than you would in the other ones, because there's a lot less punching, because it hurts your hands a lot of times as much as it's hurting the other guy that you're hitting. So, I mean, I don't get me wrong. Prayers out to that guy's family. Like, I'm not saying anything
100%.
against that, not saying anything against him dying. I'm just saying I have a hard time hating on a promotion because something like that happened, because let's face it, there may not have been as many that we've heard of in MMA, but boxing goes back hundreds of years. Boxing's had a lot of people have died in the ring.
A lot. If I'm not mistaken, last year alone, there was like a 3-month span where there was like 8 different athletes that had all passed away in different. I mean, granted, with boxing, the one thing that you can say is there's a million different boxing organizations around the world, and bare knuckle is not up to that level with, different promotions and stuff yet. So you're not seeing any numbers and stuff to be able to really compare it.
Sure, maybe not, because they've been around longer than anything else. Yeah. But I mean, to say that bare knuckle is more like dangerous for that than any of the others, it's like.
And when you see, like you say, Kyle, what a lot of the doctors and stuff from all the concussion videos and documentaries and stuff that are out there, it's not necessarily the big blow that puts somebody out that's the issue.
It's the accumulative,
the reoccurring smaller ones when somebody's already slightly out of conscious, when they're in that in-between stage, when they're rocked and then they're still just getting punishment inflicted. That's when the damage is done, from what studies I've seen. And how many boxing fights do you see that? That is like the common theme in a boxing fight, is that the A side is pouring it on the B side, and whether the B side wins or not, unless they're a scrub, they're just going to be out of their, they're going to be taking all these punches throughout the infliction of 12 rounds,
that's not
10
even
rounds, 8 rounds, whatever the case be.
Not even in that sense. You're not even counting the fact, dude, you take way more damage in a fight camp than you ever do in the fight. I mean, why do you think there's been such a revelation in MMA now to where you hear guys say all the time that they're not sparring as hard as they used to? Dude, let me tell you, you were there at that we get superstar Bill Martell on with us next week to talk about BCWA, because it just so happens that Bill Martell and I fought on the same card behind the GG Strip Club when I was 13 years old, and we'll talk about that in BCWA's Return to the Ring. But I know the real reason why all you guys are going to be tuning in is because you want to hear about me fighting behind a strip club. But that's why you got to turn in next week to hear all that. But I digress. But, dude, my point is, you take more damage. Like, dude, we would literally spar. Like, in one round, I remember it was me and this kid, Frank. He's real hyper kid, so he was real aggressive. Comes across in the first 30 seconds of the round, he buzzed me. He gets a standing 8 count. I came back, threw a few punches, came out in the next round, and gave him a standing 8 in the very next round. And we still went for 6 more fucking rounds after that. So, like understand, like, everybody wants to say, oh, they got gloves on, and oh, you got headgear on. Dude, though, your brain is still getting knocked around every time somebody socks you in the head. And a lot of times, to be honest, headgear makes it so you can't even see as much of it coming a lot of the time. So you end up taking shots that you probably normally wouldn't end up taking in a real fight because you can see them coming quicker. So, like I said, it's I don't know, it's a double-edged sword. Do I think bare knuckle, can be a little brutal at times? Sure. But then again, I also feel like it's everything else where, that one might be a little bit more niche. But then again, look at how, like, Kimbo and them blew up viral on the internet. If you turn this into a regular sport, which they already have started to do so, I mean, who knows where it could go? But I mean, if nothing else, props to Bare Knuckle FC for, doing the stuff with the pensions and, all that as well. The last thing that I got to bring up before we get off the combat sports thing, and this is something that everybody involved can comment on. You talk about management and all these things. Well, it's been announced that Jake Paul's MVP management has signed Amanda Serrano to their roster. Now, Amanda Serrano, for those of you who don't know, is arguably the best women's female boxer that's out right now, period. And if you watch her fight on what card was that, Corey? She just fought. It was
that was on the Jake Paul card.
Yeah, okay, the last Jake Paul fight. Right. So she had her last fight on the Jake Paul fight, absolutely beat the hell out of that girl, and is arguably, like I said, the greatest female boxer out right now. I think this is a power move by Jake Paul, dude. I mean, this proves that he's not just signing people just to sign people. And the fact that he's already come out and said that I don't plan on signing a bunch of fighters. I want to select out fighters, that stick out to me, and that he plans on building up Serrano before he brings anybody else to the roster. I mean, if there's one thing you can say that Jake Paul can do well, it's fucking promote himself, because look how much money they're making on these fights. And that was all because of one person. Say whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. And anyone that wants to argue it with me, you can follow me at Detroit Knockout. Follow the show at KO3C Pod. I'm all with the shits. But I'm just saying, I mean, look, you can't hate on the fact that the kid knows how to market somebody. And if I'm a fighter and I see how much money he's getting for them, shit, sign me up and get me that money, Jake Paul.
Well, that's one thing Teddy Atlas had actually pointed out with the last fight is following his Twitter, he posted, as much as I hate watching some of these Paul brothers fights, a lot of fighters need to start paying attention and learn a thing or two about marketing themselves so that they can do this same type of impact in the market like the Paul brothers have. And it's a valid fucking point. I mean, you see all the success they're doing, and they didn't come out of nowhere. Obviously, they had a ton of YouTube success coming into it and stuff. But the fact that they did come into the combat realm essentially out of nowhere, and they have a ton of people from a whole different side of media talking about them at this point, and still, like, even us bringing them up in just a random week show where they don't have a fight announcement or anything else. Like, yeah, they signed an athlete to their own promotion that they just started fighting 2 years ago. So there's definitely some notes to be taken, I feel like, from what these guys are doing.
Priest, I saw you had some. So what are your thoughts on Jake Paul signing Serrano?
Smart. I mean, like, those guys are single-handedly making boxing relevant to the mainstream, to a whole new generation of fan. Like, you think that there's some 18 to 24-year-old kids going to just watch boxing? Like, they don't know who any boxers are. Like, when you really look at the average kid on the street, they're not going to know who any boxers are. But they'll know who Jake Paul is. They'll know who Logan Paul is. And if they're boxing, guess what? They're going to know who they're boxing, and they'll be interested in other fighters on the card. And I know, and Serrano's talented, and she'll appeal to the female demographic of the young female demographic and lure them in. I'm all for it. Good on them. Like, I support wherever people are making money. Go make money. Go do your thing. They're great for boxing. They're single-handedly making the sport relevant to a whole new generation. Might be a controversial take, but that's my take.
What about you, Jbone? What do you think about Amanda Serrano signing up with old Jake Paul?
I think it's great, man. Like Priest was saying, there's money to be made out there, and boxing is one of the richest sports in the world. So the fact that they're capitalizing on that. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of the Paul brothers. I've been very vocal about it. I hate these guys, dude. But like Priest is saying, the younger age, they're tuning in because of those guys. There's no 18 to 24-year-old going out there and saying, I want to go watch a Floyd Mayweather fight, or I'm going to go back and watch Muhammad Ali.
Hey.
That's just not how it works. But you got those old cats who are boxing guys now, older generations who are wanting to see this guy and his downfall. And it's not going to come anytime soon, because give it 5 more years. Where do you think he's going to be then? that dude's going to be, maybe, whether we like it or not, could be one of the top faces in boxing, period. And hey, like I said, I'm not a fan. I don't like it. But a fact's a fact, dude. And
I can't argue with it, dude.
To argue, actually, to your point already, I feel as though he's very arguably, especially with active boxers, could you name 5 athletes that are bigger than him in boxing right now that are active? You know, like, unless you're a diehard fan or you even, like, I follow the sport. If I see like Top Rank on, if I see it on Showtime or something like that, I'll turn it on as long as I'm not having to pay for it. But that being said, there's so many divisions, so many different belts, so many different organizations, and they all are spread across many vast networks. It's so hard to follow these days, even if you wanted to try to. So I feel as though they're already top 5 in the boxing game. If you would ask my opinion, at least.
As far as draws, sure, maybe not as fighters, but as draws. I mean, there's
definitely.
As far as names and draws, dude, there's not any way to argue it, bro. The amount of money that's been turned around in these few fights that they've had, and the amount of money that's then trickled down for everybody else that were on those cards. It's like what McGregor talked about all the time with it being red panty night when you'd fight him. I mean, let's call it what it is. Even if they're not getting paid on the same scale as Jake Paul, the fact that Ben Askren made more in one night to get knocked the fuck out than he ever did as Bellator champion, in the UFC, ONE FC champion, none of that. Look, dude, call it what you want.
Well,
but numbers are numbers.
Just look at like the clear example, right? There's all this crazy headlines going on right now with the Teofimo Lopez fight, right? Like whether Triller's going to still be able to host the event, whether it's going to go back to the DAZN or however the fuck you say their weird ass name, or whether it's just going to end up falling back on Top Rank, or however it's going to end up playing out. We're not talking about that, even though that's roughly a week out and has been playing its course throughout the last week and a half. We're over here talking about what Jake Paul's impacting in the sport.
Now, and not to cut you off, but let's not also forget the fact we do have a lot to talk about in boxing this week, because Wilder Fury is this weekend, which we'll get into that on Thursday. But
that's what I was going to say. I assumed we were going to, make a segment about that on Thursday.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely is a big fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that we're talking about the Paul brothers in that same conversation, though, that tells you
it's fucking wild. That tells you everything you need to know. Like, we're talking about two heavyweights and a guy in Tyson Fury who might be one of the best heavyweights in the last 20 fucking years. And we're talking about Jake Paul. But I don't know, man. We've talked about pretty much everything that was going on in the fight world this weekend. We talked about night 1 of the draft. But last night was night 2 of the draft. And again, they have further basically perpetuated what we saw on night 1. You got Becky Lynch went over to Raw now. So, you had those mixed up. And in my notes, man, some of the things that pop up to me, Becky and Charlotte facing off is always good to me. I'm always okay with seeing them fight, and I'm interested to see what they're going to do with the 4 horsewomen coming out of this, because I feel like they're going to have to do something big with it. But that being said, I'd like to hear both of your thoughts on them having Charlotte and Bianca hook it up for the first time, because, dude, I thought that was a pretty damn good match, and I got to give credit where it's due. I think people want to forget the fact that Bianca and Charlotte faced each other in NXT, but we'll just gloss over that. But, yeah, man, I thought it was a great match. I thought she showed that she deserved to be in there, and at least, if nothing else, it leaves you in a spot where there's a lot of intrigue to be like, okay, what the fuck are they going to do with these titles? Because you've now swapped both the champions. You still got this match that's coming at Crown Jewel with the triple threat between Sasha Banks, Bianca, and Becky for the SmackDown title. I mean, it brings a lot of intrigue, but what were your guys' thoughts on Charlotte and Bianca? Did you get to check it out, Jbone?
Yeah, I did, man. I think it's good, especially for Bianca, because, I mean, let's face it, she's the next coming of, like, this generation right now. She's, like, she's going to be the top girl in that division. And the fact that she's getting those rubs from Charlotte, from Becky, even Sasha Banks right now is just doing wonders for her brand herself right now. Like, we don't even see it, but that is just going to make her bigger and bigger and bigger the more matches she gets with these girls, man. And I think it's good. I think it's perfect for her. She needs to be over there with Charlotte because Charlotte's the best right now, and for her to be with her, that does wonders for her career, and that's going to be good for her.
Priest, what about you?
To me, it's a WrestleMania test. They test the crowd last night to see how if this is a match that can be a WrestleMania match. Whether that means Bianca wins the Royal Rumble, Charlotte wins the Royal Rumble, whatever it might be. To me, that's what that was. Was just Bianca. We built her up with Sasha, with Becky. Now we got Charlotte. How are they going to click? How's the crowd going to respond? Is this something we can run back in 6 months on a big stage?
Let me ask you.
That's how I view it.
Well, let me ask you this though, because you guys both sparked a thought in my head by what you said with that too. So, do you feel like the reason why we're seeing them, granted, I think they always had the plan that they wanted to build Bianca up. But my question to both of you guys off of what you just said, do you think that the reason why we're seeing them, really build Bianca back up is a credible, baby face, a credible badass to go against the 4 horsewomen because of all the backlash that they got because they beat her in 26 seconds after doing all that shit?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it could be, but I can't see that being a thing. I don't think they're going to do anything with the 4 horsewomen thing, man. I think they fucking missed the bus on that, to be honest.
No, I don't mean necessarily doing something with the 4 horsewomen thing, but I'm saying, do you think they're pushing Bianca so hard now because having her lose like that to Becky in 26 seconds got so much shit after they built her up for so long?
I don't think so. No, it loses all the time. That loss humanizes her, and they can do a lot with it. Do I agree with the booking on that? No, but I can understand their perspective of why they booked that, why the logic behind that is, and where they think they're going to go with it. And it, in their heads, it brings her down. It makes her human. It makes her relatable to their audience. And now she's got to work hard to get back up on top. And who doesn't like an underdog story of somebody working hard to earn what they got? And that's the story they're going to push with Bianca.
Go ahead.
And I think you have to look at her and Rhea Ripley as those were their two last year that they were like, all right, here's our 2 women that we're going to look at to be the next 2. And Rhea Ripley didn't connect to the mainstream audience as much as Bianca did. Bianca, you can make more money with. She appeals to a wider range of people. She's more topical. She's more relatable. Rhea Ripley is very narrow with who she's appealing to. I think both are extremely talented. I am a fan of both, but I feel like they can see that Bianca has the bigger upside on being a top star in this day and age.
I completely can agree with that. The other thing that really jumped out to me, and the last thing we'll talk about with night 2, I, for one, am so happy to see Shayna Baszler go to SmackDown. I'm so happy to see Shayna Baszler go to SmackDown because I've been saying for months, dude, she's a killer. Period. And for them booking her as anything less than that, I don't know. I can't speak for anybody but myself, but I mean, dude, the proof is in the pudding. They turn her in to start breaking people's arms for 3 weeks, and look what happened. Everybody's all looking at Shayna like a killer again, which is what she should have been the whole time.
What baby face do they have? Bianca is that baby face that you groomed to take out a killer, and now Bianca's on Raw and Shayna's on SmackDown. So what baby face does SmackDown have? To me, Shayna's just gonna get lost in the shuffle. She's just Natty 2.0.
I'd like to hope
when Bayley comes back. Maybe when Bayley comes back.
Maybe, but
did she get drafted anywhere? Did she?
No, Bayley didn't get picked up yet.
Yeah, they'll just return her probably at Royal Rumble if she's healthy and put her wherever. But with Baszler, she's gonna kill Liv Morgan.
Yeah.
That's then what? Then who?
I can understand that. And that's a very valid point. I guess I'm just excited for her to have a change of scenery just because they've buried her for so long on Raw that like
she needs it.
With her coming out the way she did in the last few weeks and snapping arms like that, and then to have her go to a whole new place like SmackDown, I'm just hoping that we'll see that kind of carry over there. The only other thing that we have to talk about before we get out of here is the theme of what the whole thing was of night 2. So night 1, you heard Roman tell Paul Heyman, look, you need to make sure that my cousins get drafted to SmackDown with me. Well, on Monday, you saw that thread kind of playing out throughout the whole night. And then when they did get signed, Paul Heyman shows why Paul Heyman is Paul Heyman. And again, is having a heart attack in the background, like, oh my God, thank God they got him drafted to SmackDown. And then the announcer comes out and he's like, but Paul, I also wanted to ask you how you managed to keep Brock Lesnar being the only free agent in WWE. To which immediately you got the Usos are giving them the death stare. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but to me, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns might be the best story we got in wrestling right now. I mean, just my thoughts.
Oh, it definitely is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Paul Heyman has written all over it. It's his one angle, and he's booking it, and he knows what he's doing.
Well, how does this got you? Are you guys excited for Crown Jewel going into this? Because you also got the whole thing with Goldberg and Bobby Lashley, which kudos to Goldberg. I've never heard Goldberg actually cut a promo where I was like, what the fuck? That was actually pretty fucking good. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not saying it was. I'm not saying he's like a wordsmith by any means, but I'd never have seen Goldberg talk before like this run really like that, other than the little bit of stuff he had done here and there. And I feel like for what it's worth, it wasn't that bad.
Oh, Bill knows how to sell tickets. Like, Bill can cut a money promo. He always has. That's why he's drawn a shit ton of money in this business. And yeah, I don't even know what the Crown Jewel card is. Like, what's Roman right? So it's Bill and
it's Roman versus Brock.
You got doing that at Crown Jewel?
Yes, it's Roman versus Brock for the title, and then it's Roman versus Brock for the title. Goldberg versus Lashley. You got Becky versus Sasha versus Bianca for the SmackDown belt. They've got some bangers on that card, dude. That's why so many people were pissed. Well, that was the thing, though. That's why so many people were pissed going into Extreme Rules, because it basically shit all over that, and that's as good a way as any to bring up Finn Balor getting sent back to Raw, and they're talking about, they're showing even on the graphic, like that means you get the Demon and Finn Balor, but I'm like, you just had him lose when he was undefeated. If you were going to just move him back over to Raw, why couldn't we have just done like some fucking wonky finish to where Roman keeps the belt and everything? Why'd Finn have to lose if you were going to just move him over to Raw anyway?
Yeah, well, he'll survive. He'll be fine.
I agree. Well, we have survived another episode. We've got the draft is out of the way. You got UFC Vegas is out of the way. We've got a lot of cool things that are going to be coming up for you here at Knockouts and Three Counts. Like I said, if you're at BCWA, I'll have Priest plug it for us one more time in a second. We're getting down there. We're going to be there. At least I will be this weekend. You know, they got old wrestling there as well. I mean, hell, maybe we'll get Corey down to the whiskey joint this weekend. Like I say, it's a lot of good stuff to come. Jbone and I almost died because he's got a thing with for chicks with hatchets, but God damn it.
No, not me. I'm trying to get you to have a thing for chicks with hatchets. Not me.
I did not have a thing for that chick. Let's just put that out in the open. Hey, look, I'm usually up for whatever, but something about a chick with a hatchet, bro, that's a little bit over the line.
The next event, the next concert, whether it's a concert or wrestling event, I promise you I won't try to talk you into moshing with chicks with hatchets. I promise.
Well, you didn't try to talk me into moshing with chicks with hatchets, but you said, let's go hang out with some girls, and then the girl's trying to kill you with a fucking hatchet, bro. Like, usually when somebody says, let's go hang out with girls, there's usually the connotation that it's probably going to be a good time. Not that you're inviting me in to get chopped up by some bitch on the DTE Hill.
Sounds like a great time.
walking towards the mosh pit. Like, hey, let's go hang out over there towards the mosh
You were
pit.
the one who knew where she was at. Wait a minute. How is that my fault?
Got bad news written all over it.
How is that my fault? You're the one who knew where she was at. And as soon as we walked up, I'm like, we both were like, oh, shit. You're going to be saying, oh, shit, if you forget to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any of the great content from your boys here at Knockouts and Three Counts. As always, I want to say thank you to the homie Jbone. Feel free and let everybody know where they can find your podcast. And I'm still waiting to find out when I'm making my guest appearance on the Jbone Show, you son of a bitch. I can talk hip-hop too, you know.
I got big plans, whether it's hip-hop, rock and roll, doesn't even matter, man. Music is music. You can find me at jboneshow.com. Anywhere you find your podcast, man, the Jbone Show. Check it out, man. It's live.
Priest, what about you, man? How's Ramblings of a Grappleman doing? And any other shows you got going on? And feel free to let everybody know what's going down with this weekend and next weekend, for that matter.
Yeah, I've had a busy schedule. Like, pro wrestling's back, and I've had a lot of bookings in 2021. And I'm happy that pro wrestling is back on the indie scene. This weekend, Old Wrestling, Detroit Whiskey Factory, 5 p.m. downtown Detroit, just 2 blocks from Ford Field. Going to be a good show. BCWA returns to the Copeland Center in Wyandotte on the 16th, which is a Saturday night, 6 p.m. Also going to be a very good show. And then Clash Wrestling will be coming back to Allen Park November 6th, I believe it is. Josh Alexander, Jake Chris, and Juntai triple threat match for the championship.
That's a banger.
Will be headlining that show. Only announced match as Josh Alexander is the new Clash champion as he defeated Juntai back at the last one. So exciting there. BCWA, like I said, no matches going to be announced in advance, but the talent list is plentiful. You can go to gobcwa.com to check out everyone who's going to be there. And Old Wrestling, same thing. Old with an E, OLDEE, wrestling.com is going to have a full list of who everyone is at the Whiskey Factory in Detroit this Saturday. So, yeah, a lot of wrestling coming up. Ramblings of Grappleman is somehow just turned into a gambling show at this point. Football season back, and we're just going through picks. And during the show, speaking of guys who've been taken out, well, the New York Yankees just got taken out by the Boston Red Sox. And bring me the money, because that was a very profitable night for your boy over here. I was all over the Bo Sox, and I'm very happy with the result right now. But yeah, you get those kind of takes over at Ramblings with the Grappleman. Occasionally we'll break down all elite wrestling with Nick Braxton, where our work schedules don't clash with each other. And when I get a wild hair at my ass, I'll get real deep and analytical about something in wrestling that's bothering me. And I'll ramble for about a good half hour to an hour. That's what you get over there. But right now it's mostly going to be football picks and gambling stuff. So it is what it is.
It is what it is, but you got to make sure you check it out the same ways I tell you every week why you got to check us out here at Knockouts and Three Counts, because, hell, you don't know what we got coming for you. And, I mean, again, I might have to start being more selective in the who I let on this show, since people like to try to get me cut up when we hang out outside of the show and all those kind of things. But, hey, man, until next time and in the in-between time, watch that hatchet! Peace.